Welcome to 100 Huntley Street. Today we are marking the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. This day was informally known as Orange Shirt Day, and it honors the Indigenous victims and survivors from residential school. Canada has a rich history of Indigenous peoples and culture. As a matter of fact, right here in Burlington, where our studio is located, we are on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe. For those who don't know, because for many years, residential schools were not talked about. In the 1880s, Canada actually started funding residential schools, and the goal was to assimilate children into Canadian culture. The schools actually tore families apart, were rife with both physical and sexual abuse, put children up in poor living conditions. These residential schools stripped children of their culture, their language, punishing kids if they even spoke their native language. But today on 100 Huntley Street, we are sharing stories of resilience and miraculous stories of residential school survivors finding healing through a personal relationship with Jesus. And we'll share how churches are listening to the needs of Indigenous people to find healing. Joining me today is Adrian Jacobs, Senior Leader of Indigenous Justice and Reconciliation for the Christian Reformed Church. Adrian, welcome.
Good to be with you today.
It's so great to have you here. And you know, I just shared a land acknowledgement, which is our way of recognizing the land we're on. What is the connection that Indigenous people have with the land?
Yeah, one of the things that I know about our people is that land is really important to us. It's something that is more than just a thing. We have a relationship with the land. And one of the terms that we use for the earth is mother. And it's a metaphor. It describes the relationship. It's a caring relationship because as the earth provides for all of our needs, so did our mothers provide for our needs. And so that idea is our connection to the earth is that relational kind of idea. So that's what the land is to us as Indigenous folk.
It's so beautiful. And the way that Indigenous people care for the land is something I've always admired. Well, you know, the residential school system was church run. So it was Catholic, United, Presbyterian, Anglican. And because of the harms done, it's been a difficult relationship between the church and Indigenous people. There's all those historical wrongs. But your role is to help facilitate that conversation, that reconciliation. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I work for the Christian Reformed Church. I'm the senior leader for Indigenous Justice and Reconciliation. And the church itself has been engaged with Indigenous folk going back into the 70s and even some desires back into the 60s. But one of the things that they recognized was that the residential school approach was not the most helpful way of approaching Indigenous community. Recognized the harm that was enacted on our people. So they decided to do something else and to approach it differingly. And so part of their response was to work with communities in Winnipeg at first. And they knew that because of the effects, the intergenerational effects of residential schools, they knew that they had to be a place of healing, of inclusion, of well-being, of welcoming, helping people to not hear the rejection that the policy of assimilation gave to them in the residential schools, but the idea of Creator made you who you are, your language is good, your way of understanding the world is a part of who you are as a person, and it is acceptable as well. So in Winnipeg, they have the Indigenous Family Center there, and so the idea there is to bring people together and to deal with the effects of residential school by helping people accept themselves and accept their own language and accept their own family relations in order to find well-being back in community. Because as you described, they were taken away from families and tore families apart, but the effort there has been to bring them back together again.
It's so beautiful, the work that you're doing and the celebration of Indigenous culture. All over the world, we celebrate our cultures. And I see that as healing, too, as Indigenous people are able to embrace it. And we, the people who cause the harm, are able to celebrate it. Now you yourself are Indigenous. You're Haudenosaunee. And how does that relate to your faith? Because you've been a Christian since you were in your 20s. So how do you reconcile that within yourself?
Yeah, I grew up in the traditional community of my own people. And the kind of thing that I learned was the traditional understanding of our world and of who we are as people, including our bringing together of our people in the Six Nations Haudenosaunee Confederacy. We were referred to by others as Iroquois. And so this belt here that I have with me is an example of the long tradition of joining together. At one time, we were at war with one another within our own communities, and a peacemaker from the Wendat people came to our people saying, that's not what the Creator wanted us to do, and so he began to speak a message of peace. And in that message of peace, he emphasized the role of mothers and the clan mothers who chose the chiefs. There was a real understanding that this nurturing that our Mother the Earth was seen in the clan mothers. They had known the children. So they then said, we can choose the chiefs that will bring us together and to listen to the people, because the role of leadership was always to listen to the people and to be expressive of what they said. And so there came a time of bringing our people out of warfare into peace with one another. And this line between all of the various elements on this Hiawatha belt is actually a description of linking arms together. So when you link arms together, it's more than just holding hands. It's a strong relationship that you have with one another.
Yeah.
And so the idea was, we're one, we're together. And it was a message of peace. And it was kind of like what Melchizedek did in the Jewish world, pointed the way to the coming peacemaker, the ultimate peacemaker. And Melchizedek was a priest and a king and served bread and wine, so prefiguring the coming of Christ. So our people understood the idea of peace. And so when we heard about Jesus and about him laying down his life for the community, we understood that already. Wow. That leaders among our people are those that give their lives for the others, for everybody else.
What a beautiful idea of leadership. And, you know, I just want to say the work you're doing is so important. And we just want to honor you here at 100 Huntley Street, cheer you on, keep going. We're so thankful for you. We're so grateful for you, for that bridge building. So thanks so much for joining us today,
Okay.
Adrian.